Welcome back to this series of tutorials. So for this tutorial, we're going to start building our job. And from the previous tutorial, we managed to create our two tables, that is the transactions table and the log table. And as you can see that we do not have records within these tables as of yet. And we also created a connection to MySQL. And yeah, so let's start building our job. So for this job, what we are going to do is just to load all of these files to our database, to our transactions table. And we are not going to implement the lookup solution in this tutorial. We're going to do that in the next tutorial. Otherwise, the tutorial will be about 10 to 12 minutes long. So I'm going to start building the job. So I'm going to drag and drop the MySQL connection here, and I'm going to use the TDB connection. I'm going to do this so as to avoid passing on the credentials whenever I have a MySQL component. So whenever I have a MySQL component, I'm just going to use the existing connection which we have already created here. So what I need to do next is to use a component that's going to list all of the files within this directory, this input folder. So what I'm going to do is just copy this directory and use the t file list and trigger component. Okay, so for the directory, we could pass the raw directory here, but I'm not going to do that since this solution might be deployed in a different environment. Maybe for UATs, you're going to use a different environment. For QATs, you're going to use a different environment. So what I'm going to use is a context variable. So here, under context here, I'm going to create a new variable. I just call it input folder. And then for the value, I'll just pass input folder, this folder here, and put it in a double quotes as a string, and I'll copy it to this component and reconfigure it. So I'm going to take the include subdirectories because I know that I do not have subdirectories in my input folder. And for the file mask, I'm not going to put any regular expressions here because I know that my files, they are all CSV files and they put the same schema. So I'm not going to do that here. However, for this directory here requirement, I'm going to use my context control space and then context input folder. That's the one I'm going to use. So let's just list all of these files that are within this tfile list component. So for that, we're going to use t iterative flow. And let's configure it and let's go to schema. What we need is the file name and file path. So we need to file name as well as file path. So for the values now, we know that as tfile list is going to run, it is going to return some global variables, and this is the error message, current file name with path, current file extension, and etc. But what we need is just the current file and current file path. So we're going to type t file control space and current file. It will return the file name and the extension as well as the file path. We're going to use t and current file path. So for the file name, we're going to use the current file from the tfile list, and from the file path, we're going to use current file path. We did this so that for each iteration, it will return a different name. We will know that we have 3 files within that folder. So let's just print them out and see if that is working. let's use T log row here, and row, and let's sync the columns. We're going to print them in the form of a table. And edit schema. I'm going to print the file path. Let me pass the error here. The schema from the input later. Let me run it. As you can see, tlog row returned these 3 files here: transactions 1, 2, and 3. And these are the files that are within this directory, this input folder directory. So what we need to do now is to iterate from this flow here. So I'm going to delete here, and I'm going to use tflow to iterate. So tflow to iterate will iterate the output of titerate to flow one by one. So row main here, and let's configure this component. Use default no. Do we use create Talend? So for the value of file path, I'm going to click here so that I take the file path. So file name is going to be file name, file path is going to be file path, and this is the output of titerate to flow, which is going to be the input of tflow to iterate. So I'm going to take my file input delimited, iterate. So we're going to be iterating all of these files one by one, and we're going to use the t file input delimited. So since our files are in CSV format, and we know that the separator here is not a semicolon, it's just a comma. And for the schema, let's start building it. We know that we have 4 columns, and the first one is transaction dates, and it's going to be a string data type, and the length, it's 100. That's the one in our database. And for the account number, it's going to be string, and the length is 100 as well. And this one is a reference number, and the length is string length 100 as well. And for the last column, it's amount, and the data type is not string, it's a float, since that's the one in our database. I'll just put 100 here as well, and I'll click OK. So for the file name now, we're not going to like give a default file name. What we're going to use is the output of tflow to iterate. So tflow to iterate is going to be iterating the output of our titerate to flow. Yeah, it sounds confusing. Titerate to flow, tflow to iterate. But from the documentation, let me just open the documentation. Titerate to flow, it transforms non-processable data into a process flow. So it will just take the input from t file list and just keep it there, and the tflow to iterate is the one that's going to be iterating that output from titerate to flow one by one, and tflow to iterate. So what we're going to pass here is the tflow to iterate the file path, because that's the one that's is got the file path and the file name and the extension as well. So let's just print this one out. Tlog row main, in the form of a table, seeing columns. Let's run it and see the output. As you can see, it's now saying could pass value for amount, what value amount is. input string. Let's see what is up here. The job ran successfully, however, it's giving me that error. Let's see what's that error, where that error is coming from. Oh, it's because of these headers here. So our data has got headers, and I didn't put the row for headers. So our header, our data has got headers on the first row. So headers one here, and let's rerun it. So we have to clear that error. Now our job ran successfully without those errors. As you can see, this is the output for the first file, and this is the output for the second file, and this is the output for the third file. So what we need to do is now load this output to our database, and with that we need to use MySQL output. So it inserts or updates lines to MySQL table. That's row, and then we say main here, and component. So for this component, I'm not going to be passing my creds here. I'm going to use an existing connection because I already have this connection already, and I'll just drag and drop here. Click this drop down and click TDP connection, and the table is the table that we created here is transactions. And the action on data is insert. What we might need to do is to sync the columns. Let's edit schema. So for the transaction date, the DB column, account number, reference number, amount. So everything here is fine. Let me click OK, and let me run. So the job ran successfully. Let's go to the table and take a look if there's anything. There's nothing. Let's see what's wrong. Oh, we didn't commit the change. I always forget that. So let's commit our changes to MySQL commit. Need to commit those changes. Row. To use on component, okay. And we're not going to close the connection. Because if we close the connection, this means that for the next iteration, this MySQL analytics connection will be closed. So we're going to untick it here, and then use the component that's already in action, and we run it. Okay, so 3 rows have been executed. If we come back to our table here, we can see if we run here, you now see that we have data here for 19, 20, and 21. So this means our job is working perfectly fine.